Hi, I'm Michael Firkins, and I just want to welcome you to my video. For the next hour, I'm going to be talking about a lot of different techniques that I used when I was first learning how to play, and some of the techniques that I'm using right now. I'm going to be covering a lot of rhythm techniques and just texturizing with the guitar, and then towards the end get up to a little more of the technical stuff with scales and arpeggios. Before we get into anything, I just want to go ahead and give you a note to tune to. Start with the E. B, G, D, A, and E. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about today is rhythm guitar. I've noticed that the whole lead thing has gotten kind of out of hand the past couple years, and I just think it's really important that you concentrate on chords and rhythm guitar a lot. You don't really have to, I think, need to be a big chord master and play a lot of, 13th chords and all that kind of stuff, but I think thinking about rhythm a lot is very important. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to record some things as I'm playing them, and I'm going to overdub things over them to just kind of texturize some guitar parts. And basically the whole concept is just taking simplistic ideas and adding them up into something that says something instead of actually playing a really technical thing. So what I'm going to do here is just kind of a real bluesy kind of slide rhythm, and I'm going to overdub some things on it a little bit later. Okay, all I was doing there was just thumping on the bass note as I was imitating slide on the higher strings with my whammy bar. I was just doing a little bit of... And I'm just keeping my pick on my ring finger on my right hand and using my pinky to work the whammy bar. Using a couple seventh chords up in there, and a lot of open strings down here. Seventh chord down there. Okay, what I'm going to do now is just plug into a different sound and do some clean things on top of that rhythm that sort of complement what I already laid down. What I was doing there was just some volume swells with a clean sound, and obviously I'm just hitting the note before I bring it in and just slowly bring the volume knob in. A couple of those kind of gives it a pedal steel type effect when you add some more harmonies on. Okay, what I'm going to do now is lay a lead on top of all the other parts that are already there. What we got already is just, you know, the first rhythm part, and we have the clean sound with the volume swells. And what I'm going to do now is just put a melody over the top of it. And we've already got a lot going on, so we don't really want to get in the way of anything that's already there. And one way you can help to get around that is get another different sound in there. I don't think you know, I'd want to use the same sound as the prior electric sound to lay the lead down, or it's going to kind of clash with the frequencies in there. So what I'm going to do is use the wah pedal down here, and I'm going to just turn it on and pull it all the way back to give it kind of an old-time, real low-endy kind of sound, and lay the melody over the top. Okay, what I want to talk about now is kind of what I was doing before with the imitation slide technique, except get into it a little bit more and explain a little bit about what I'm doing. Before I get into it, though, I want to kind of just play for a little bit and give you an idea of what I'm doing. Okay, to explain a technique like this, there's a couple things you need to know. First of all, just using your fingertips helps you get a lot better of a tone for this kind of style. You know, a lot of the old slide players, I think, use their fingers, and it just allows you to plug 2 and 3 notes at a time and just get that kind of sound. What I'm doing there is just taking a lot of thirds, a lot of cliche slide voicings, and just give it a low note with your thumb and bring it up with your whammy bar. And sometimes, you know, you can give it a bend on with your left hand also at the same time that you're kind of accents on the bend. When you're using your fingers, a lot of times I like to put my pick in my my ring finger there. So if you want to just pull it out, just all of a sudden it's pretty easy. Okay, I don't know really where I came up with a technique like this. A couple of the influences that helped me out after I had started playing a couple of these things were just some Led Zeppelin riffs, just a little bit of, you know. And I think a little bit of Joe Walsh in there, just. All right, for the most part, what I'm doing is pushing on the whammy and letting all the strings come up in tune. But if you try pulling up, there's certain sweet spots that you can find where just the tension creates different harmonies where you're pulling up, and it's usually the same on any guitar with a vibrato arm, but you definitely have to find the little areas. For instance, on the 4th string, if you pull up a full step, you're going to find a flat 5 on the G string, or if you play some thirds on the E and B string, you're going to get into the major and then up into a minor third. Okay, there's also a couple other areas where if you say you want to add in a couple low notes when you're doing some of the higher bends, you add something in low. Usually it doesn't work out with the tension, so sometimes you have to pull up a little bit on one of the lower strings. And there's other times where it just kind of lucks out and some of the lower notes are in tune, like this one. Okay, just to sum up this technique a little bit, I just want to say that it's mostly a feel thing. It's a little bit of maybe listening to some slide players and just getting a feel for the certain different voicings that someone might use on the slide. Basically, you just kind of get the technique down. You just kind of go for it. Okay, I'd like to talk about lead playing for this next section. One of the things that helped me out when I was first learning to play was just taking scales and learning them in all the different positions. The way that I found helpful was just taking one scale up the string and then building the scale off each one of those notes. Okay, when you do something like that and you play throughout the whole neck, I think you get a better idea of where you can play instead of just repeating yourself here and maybe taking it up an octave higher. Okay, I think the best thing about learning these scale positions isn't the fact that you're sitting around playing them all the time, but the best thing about them is just learning where you can solo. You can get all sorts of chords out of those notes, and it helps you with your chord theory and just in general about music. For instance, if you just take the first two strings and take all the positions out of those, you have a lot of different possibilities of chord fragments and patterns that you can make out of those. For instance, get all your thirds, all your sixths. And from that, what you can do is just make up a lot of different patterns within that. And all I was doing there was just taking each position, skipping over one of them, and coming back to the one that I skipped. Okay, after working out some of these scale positions, I found that if I applied some of my finger picking techniques to the same thing, you can come up with some interesting techniques out of that. For instance, if you take just the blues scale up the string like that, take that and do the same thing on the B string. Kind of combine them together a little bit. And then and mix it up a little bit. And what I'm doing there is just taking the B string and doing that with my thumb. Just a little hammer and a pull-off, and then giving the E string a little pull after I'm done. And do that and just repeat everything up the scale. Now if you take that same concept of playing a blues scale straight up the neck on two strings, there's a couple other variations you can use. For instance, if you're in C sharp, and taking the scale straight up the string and using more of thirds and seconds as opposed to fourths. And what I'm going to do there is just use that same theory where I'm skipping the different positions and coming back to the positions that I had skipped, like this. And let's play a little bit slower for a second. Okay, another technique you can use vertically up the neck like that is a technique that I think I found by just checking out different harmonica players, and it's a real standard harmonica lick. can take a couple open strings and add it in there and just take it up the neck. What I'm doing there is just the same thing again. With my thumb, just giving a little hammer and a pull off, except I'm sliding in to each position. And I'm just giving the first string a whack with my first finger on the open string. Okay, a similar technique that you can use with the open strings is something that I think I got from listening to a couple banjo players. I'm not very good at doing a lot of the finger rolls, but just on the two strings with the E and B, you can kind of get that kind of an effect by just... What I'm doing right there is just, my right hand is pretty much just back and forth on the two strings. Okay, by adding a capo, you can get some different tonalities because you're able to change where your open strings are going to fall. You can just put it on anywhere and you get some interesting tonalities. And right there what I'm doing is just, you know, again, skipping the different positions and coming back to the ones that I was skipping. Okay, by adding a capo on, you can get some different tonalities because this allows you to change where your open strings are going to fall. And by changing it around, you can get a lot of different tonalities happening. Again, what I'm doing there is just taking the different positions, skipping over some of them, and coming back to them. Okay, now getting back into the pedal steel kind of effect, if you take some of these intervals of sixths and do kind of the same technique with them, you can get a lot of nice pedal steel or country kind of effects just by again, just pressing on the whammy and letting it come up on its own. Okay, going back into the skipping of positions, you can take that same theory and get some other licks with that. And what I'm doing there is just pulling off with my fourth finger. If you add some open strings to that same theory, you can come up with something that I think kind of sounds like almost like a tap, but it's not really. It's kind of like this. What I'm doing there is just pulling off to the open strings. Okay, just to sum up this last section that we were just talking about, I just want to remind you to try to take different elements of your playing and try to use chords and different rhythms and different techniques to try to come up with something whole and entertaining for yourself. What I'm going to do is just try to take some of the things I was showing you and combine them with some rhythmic stuff and create something here. Take that same sweep and you climb up the neck in some of the different triads out of the scale like this. Okay, now if you take that same technique right there and you combine it with the technique that we talked about earlier where you kind of mix up your fingering on the way down and give another tap, you have something like this. And I'll play that slow for you. Again, you can move that up the neck. For instance, take one of the other patterns we were talking about where you go up a minor third every time and it kind of sounds like this. Okay, now you take some of those different techniques that I just showed you and you start mixing them up a little bit and try to take different elements of your playing and come up with some really wild licks. Here's a couple of them that I came up with. Okay, and what I'm doing there is just going up the scale with a minor 7 arpeggio like this. Hitting a grace note on the E and the B strings. Like that. And what I do from there is I slide into some of those triads that we were playing before. Okay, now that you take some of these different techniques that I've shown you and you kind of mix them up and combine different elements of your playing to come up with some really different kind of licks by combining other ones like this. Okay, and what I'm doing there is just starting on C sharp, and I'm using a minor 7th shape. And then I'm going into a couple grace notes on the E and the B string. From there, I slide into a couple of those triads that we were using before, and I kind of get a circular motion going, and I finish it off with a couple 6th chords like this. If you take a different scale other than the ones we've been playing and you take some of the different elements from before and add them into a different scale, you can come up with some interesting tonalities. Just taking a harmonic minor scale, putting a flat 5 in there and creating some arpeggios out of that, you can get something like this. And what I'm doing there is just kind of crisscrossing through some of the notes in the scale in a comfortable shape that I can work with like this. Okay, just to sum up everything that we've talked about, we've covered a lot of rhythmic things, and we've covered a lot of lead playing, and I think the most important thing that has helped me out over the years is to just try to combine the two. Even when you're just playing by yourself and tapping your foot, it's really important to play rhythm, and every 4 or 8 beats try to throw a lead in there and keep it going and pop back into the rhythm. And you don't have to keep a perfect 4/4 time. You can experiment with different time signatures that way, and I think it's by far the most important thing you could do for yourself is just sitting around and practicing rhythm and throwing in the lead. On that note, I just want to say thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you like my video, and I'm going to try to play a couple things on the way out, and thanks a lot. See ya.